I realized I wasn't, I had taken the job, didn't interview anywhere else in Shanghai. I was literally like, okay, sure, I'll take the job. Yeah. Moved back to Vancouver. Yeah. Got rid of all of my stuff, and a month later I was in Shanghai and working at this yoga job. So I was only there for a year, thank God.
Best decision you've ever made?
Best decision I've ever made to move to Shanghai.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, not the yoga job. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it was my foot in the door job, and
Yeah.
it was an eye-opening experience working with, very local. Or at first it started out as Western management, and then it was local management. It was a very eye-opening experience, seeing the transition and the styles. I met one of my best friends, Nick, you know him.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I met one of my best friends through that job. So yeah, I was very happy I made that decision. At first I thought I'd be here for a year. Yeah. 2 years maybe. Right. Just to see what it was like here and then check it out, whatever. But there's just so much opportunity. There's so much life in this city that I feel like if I were to leave, I'd sort of be wasting my youth. I always tell people this. Like, I feel like I'd be wasting my youth if I weren't here doing what I was doing.
Yeah, I mean, you're still in your youth. Let's start there, right?
That's not what my grandmother is telling me.
She has her opinions. We respect our elders, right? But like, you're very much still in your youth. How old were you when you did that? You were like, what, 22, 23?
Something like that. Around 22, I think. Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Like, in hindsight, I did that as well. But I think that story is very, very common, right? Like the whole come to Shanghai, whether that's 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then whoops, 6 years later, 7 years later. Yeah.
Exactly. A lot of people here accidental lifers, I think. Yeah. But I'm not mad about that. Like, I have family. I was born in Shanghai, so I have family here. So even though my parents, my brother aren't here, I still am able to see my grandparents and my cousins and aunts and uncles who I didn't really get a chance to get to know very well when I was living in Canada. Yeah.
I would say you are one of the people, like, off the top of my head, there's maybe not that many, less than 5 people who I want to have this conversation with. But because, we have a personal relationship and I've known you for so long, I would love to sit down when we are in our late 40s and just to kind of see, how did this period in our life shape us? Right? Because we're not going to see it now. I mean, I think I'm starting to, I think maybe you're starting to as well, because we're leaving our 20s. I've left my 20s, right? But like, I really want to see it when we're in our 40s and when the world will have changed so much and Shanghai will have changed so much, right? And we look back on these 5 to 10 years and kind of be like, wow, these were life-defining years.
Well, your 20s are supposed to be some of the most, like, they shape who you are for the rest of your life. And it's when you discover who you are, right? So like for yourself, I've watched you go through so many jobs and, various iterations of your personality. Same personality, just, a little bit different iterations. And you were just telling me before we started this, recording this, that you sort of are very comfortable with who you are right now. Yeah. And you're happy and you can see yourself doing this for a very long time. And I am really very much looking forward to when I'm finding that within myself. You will, for sure. I think the important part is to try. Like, I have this one saying where I say, sometimes you got to shoot first and aim second. Right. You shot a lot of times.
There was zero aiming done in my 20s. It was like, all right, how does this trigger work? Okay. Yeah. But now it's, on the one hand, like, I'm able to look back now on a lot of the ventures that I've tried to a various degree of success and very see it in 2020 vision. Like, how I'm approaching this entire noodle shop thing now is very different even from like 2 years ago. So I think if you're at least willing to kind of learn, if you're willing to kind of be honest with yourself, you can grow a lot and understand a lot. I think you'll get there. Yeah, hopefully. I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I really want to do and finding, I'm very good at, like, being good to myself. I'm very good at being by myself. I'm good at being alone and not needing to be with anybody else. But I think what I'm struggling with right now is figuring out a career path that I want to be passionate and, keep me passionate for. Can you define that passion for me? Like, what is it that some people define as you wake up every day and you're excited to go to work. Is it like that type of passion, or?
I don't think I necessarily need to be excited to go to work.
Right.
Because I'm not a morning person. I don't think I'd ever be excited to go to work.
Sure.
But I think it's, especially this year, I've started to notice, whether it's a combination of COVID and all this other stuff, but I do a lot of sighing these days. And I don't want to be sitting at a chair sighing a lot. I want to be
at work or
at work. Yeah. Like a lot of,
Yeah.
More and more it's becoming like that, you know? So I think it's...
I work with you. I remember those. Yeah.
It's a lot of frustrating sighs, and it's a combination of factors, you know, not just what I'm doing at work, but it's the whole environment. And for me to be able to find something that I'm passionate about, I think it's, first of all, it's something that I want to be doing every day that excites me, and that I'm happy, you know, whether it's whoever I'm speaking to during this role, whether it's peers or vendors or clients or bosses, I don't want to feel like frustrated or angry all the time. I just want to feel like I'm happy and enjoying it, and not that it's taking over my life. Actually, the last thing I want is for my passion to take over my life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Like, knowing you the way I know you, I feel like it is so vital for you to be able to balance life, like life in your terms. And I think for you, that sometimes just means just like being by yourself and chilling out and, you know, whatever, right? Like not thinking about much.
Doing nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to have me time and just sitting there and being on my phone or watching TV or hanging out with my cat. Like, I just don't necessarily need to be very stimulated all the time. Yeah.
I think that's fucking awesome. And I think it's really awesome with you because you understand that that's okay. I don't. And I think a lot of people are, maybe when they hit 30-ish, like I have, start to get a little antsy, right? But it seems like with you, you're still trying to grow and figure this out. But at the same time, like, you know who you are. I think you knew who you were fairly early. You know, like I would say in your early 20s, you were pretty comfortable with who you were.
I think I was, but I didn't recognize that I was. You know, like so this is actually fairly recent that I came to this realization is I've always been very independent. Like when I was in Canada, I was homestaying because my parents had decided to move back to Vancouver or move back to Shanghai from Vancouver because they had more friends here. They were more excited to be here. And, you know, for them, there was more opportunity for work. So they came back. And then when I was 14, I stayed back in Vancouver. So I went through my teen years without my parents around. And for me, it was very interesting because I never had to go through the angsty teenage years with them. So I never really had that like bumping heads, whatever. I got to do whatever I want. So it made me very independent. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've sort of carried with me through the rest of my life is I don't really need anyone to be around me. I've got it down. Yeah. My grades were fine. Yeah. I went to a good school, you know, things like that. So I think I'm very comfortable with being by myself. Yeah. But I didn't realize that this was the case until recently when I went on a solo trip.
Dude, then that's like very recent.
Very recent. Yeah, very recent. Yeah. So like I knew that I was comfortable with being myself, but this trip, I was supposed to go to this trip. Yeah. I was supposed to go on this trip as like a reflection.
Right. Where did you go?
I went to Yunnan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yunnan, China. Yeah. 10 days, solo backpacking trip.
Nice.
I went to a few, you know, I went to a few cities within Yunnan. So all beautiful. Part of it was this like 2-day hike through this place called Tiger Leaping Gorge. That was stunning. And it was supposed to be this like time for me to reflect on myself and where I was in my life and what I wanted to do. And to see if I was, you know, it was sort of supposed to be like this soul searching type thing. So I did the entire trip. And I realized I didn't get any soul searching. No. I was supposed to do a lot of reflection. So maybe I'm not so good at reflection. But what I did realize was the entire time, there wasn't a single time where I was like, oh, you know, I'm feeling so lonely. I wish there was somebody here with me. So that at the end of the trip, the only thing that I had realized was was one that I was maybe soulless because I didn't think about anything about having a soul. But it was, you know, being very comfortable being with myself. And I'm very happy with that. And the only thing that I was uncomfortable with was, like not having anyone to eat with me because I think like being by yourself in a restaurant, number one, you can't order as much food as you want. So that was like, you know, annoying. And then two, you can't really share what you were doing with somebody else. But it's not like I don't have enough friends that I can just send a message on, you know, WeChat or Instagram, whatever, that I can share with people.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the food part is really interesting. When I got out of my last relationship, the first time that it really like bothered me was when I was ordering Waimai. And, and like I was watching TV, so it wasn't even, and I have my dog, but even then I was just like, wow, this is really lonely. Because whenever I travel, I realize I either have a book or I have my laptop and I'm like watching a TV show while I eat. Like 95 out of 100 times.
Yeah.
But I completely get that feeling.
Yeah.
When you really feel when you're eating. I want to go back to this solo trip thing. So for me, I did that trip, I think, when I was 25. Like, I think we were working together at the time. So there was one summer where I just fucked off for like 21 days and I went to Europe. Like, I went to like Iceland, Norway, Sweden.
Right, I seem to remember
Italy,
this trip.
Spain.
I think you had already left the company at this point.
Possibly.
Right?
Good times, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was still on their payroll. Those were my vacation days that I used right before I left the company.
Yeah.
But like that trip, I think is super fucking important. And I think that's one of the benefits of being in Shanghai is we are surrounded in a culture where a lot of people do this. Like a lot of people you knew have done that. A lot of people I know have done that, right? Whereas when you're in Vancouver, that is not the case at all.
You're right.
Yeah.
I've
Right.
never thought about it like that. Yeah, I don't know very many people from home that go on trips by themselves.
Right. And I think especially geographically, right? Because here, Europe, I think is considered far, like what I did. I think most people do that through like Asia, of which you have so many options and so many incredible options, and within China alone. But in Vancouver, where are you going to go that is relatively close? Like Colorado, like there's Montana, right?
Seattle, Oregon.
You're not going to go
but they're
on...
like road trippy type places.
Right.
And I feel like driving alone for a very long time is a little bit different than flying somewhere and having all of these places that you can go to right away.
And you're also not going to LA for a soul-searching trip. Like that's not what you're there for.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or Vegas or Mexico, wherever else. So I think it's these little things that I've gotten older now and that I've been here for so long that I'm really coming to appreciate about this city. And I guess with it, it's people, or at least the people we know.
Yeah, I think a lot of my friends here, they choose to do solo trips because they need to collect their thoughts about something, or they've been stressed at work and they just want to be by themselves for a while. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Because people at home, I think... things happen in groups there, and if you tell them, or I've never tried telling them, like, are you going on a solo trip? People will be like, oh, what? That's like so surprising. Why would you do something like that? I think people do a lot of solo camping trips, maybe like go hiking and spend a night in the mountain. That's something that people at home do. But here it's a lot of like flying somewhere and going scuba diving or, adventure things. Like for me, Yunnan, it's adventure things.
Like Yunnan, right? I really want to do Yunnan. I still haven't done Yunnan either. I think I'm going to wait till maybe like the spring. I don't know if I want to do Yunnan in January.
Might be a bit cold. Yeah, spring would be better.
Would it be like very different than how you went, I guess? Would there be, I guess, more snow-capped shit? Or
there would be mountains with snow.
Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. As you move up to sort of like the Shangri-La area, there will be snow. Yeah. It's quite cold, but I think springtime is a better time to go. And in the summer, there's fresh wild mushroom hot pot. Yeah. Which I highly recommend.
You love hot pot, so it's like a plus for you. Yeah.
You don't like hot pot?
I'm okay with hot pot. It's like, I'm not going to go on my way to get it, but like if we're grabbing dinner tonight, you're like, you want to get hot pot? I'll be like, sure.
Okay. Yeah. That's fair.
I'm debating. I might go in January. We'll see. Because I went to Iceland in August. And I absolutely, probably with my mom, want to go back to Iceland in December. Because I think Iceland's, it's one of these places where if you go summer versus January, it is like a completely different experience. I think Yunnan, especially the Shangri-La area, might be the same. Like winter there and like non-winter there,
it's very different.
Yeah, like I'll probably go back in the summer or October or wherever else, but I think going in the winter might be interesting.
It might be. I think it'll be nice. Yeah, especially the mountains with the snow. But if you're going to do any sort of like hiking in the mountains, then you'd need to be prepared with all of your gear and all of that. And there's excellent hiking in Yunnan.
Yeah, and I guess some places will probably be closed as well, right? Some trails and stuff maybe.
Probably, but I think I went the Tiger Leaping Gorge hike. When I was doing my research, people were definitely still doing it in the winter. It's just very cold, so you just have to make sure you wrap up.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with cold. From Canada.
Yeah, Vancouver is hardly cold though.
It's not. It's really not.
It really isn't. Yeah. I mean, in the last few years, it has been getting colder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to my mom today. She was saying it's actually like legit colder, like single digits with wind chill. And then here, we're like, wow, it's a sunny day. It's like 20 degrees here.
Yeah, people are wearing like shorts and skirts.
I was wearing shorts, yeah.
Exactly. We're having, but I heard this winter is going to be one of the coldest on record here.
Great. Yeah. Let's go to Sanya for like a month.
It's time to put the scooter blankets on the scooter.
Fuck, man. I really don't. Winters here suck. They really do.
They're terrible. Yeah.
Now you mentioned skirts, I was going to say one of the things that reminded me of you, sorry, not reminding me of you, what reminded me about having you on was the current company that you work for. I'm not going to name it. You can name it if you want. But you have a lot of what I would call modern Chinese women in your company.
Yes.
Right? And this is a conversation we've had on the podcast. I've had one of your ex-colleagues on my podcast, actually.
No way!
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll probably have more. I would love to get Echo on one day. And I think Echo fits this category.
I agree, yeah.
Right?
Sure.
But I think when you and I first came here, there were foreigners, there were locals, and then there were people like you and I.
Yes.
And now everybody we hung out with.
Yeah.
And I think when you look now, that's been divided even further. And it's been very segmented. Like we've talked about conversations on this podcast where we're just like, there's a skater culture here. There's like some sort of grunge culture here right now.
There is, yeah.
You know, and then there's that entire like fitness culture, which is like, you know, and then there's also like a creative culture, you know, like, and it is very heavily segmented.
Yeah. Before it was not like this at all.
It was,
so there are much cooler, small little niche culture groups that are appearing.
Purely
and you can
Chinese.
spot them on the street very easily.
Yeah.
But I love it. I feel like the culture in Shanghai has really, really blossomed in the last few years that we've been here.
Isn't that crazy?
It's really cool. I think one time you were telling me, the way you were telling me was like, I think it was like before it was like Western people.
Yeah.
And then it was the Chinese people. And then it was us. And then recently, because of this blurring, I think Chinese girls have gotten a lot hotter.
Dude, especially like around where we live. Are you kidding me? I go to Sanya for a weekend now and I come back. I'm like, Shanghainese girls are different. Or just the girls in Shanghai.
Yeah. My little brother, who just turned 19, he was dating this girl in Shanghai. And she looked so freaking like, she was beautiful, first of all. Very mature for her age. But like when I think they started dating when they were 17. Chinese girls 5 years ago when they were 17 do not look like 17-year-olds these days.
They were like girls, you know, like
they were like
14,
thick eyebrows, never been touched, you know, messy ponytail that looked like founding father style, like type. You know, with their tracksuit, you know, with their like tracksuits.
Yeah. The school tracksuits.
Exactly. But with like the social media these days, Chinese people are very good at copying other cultures, especially in Shanghai.
And they do it fast.
Exactly.
And they do it good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I love nowadays, especially that I'm seeing in Chinese, like young people, Gen Z especially, is they have their own style.
Yeah.
It's not copying Japanese or Korean or, you know, American or European.
Right.
There's a very distinct local Chinese flavor in the way that Chinese local girls, young girls dress these days.
What is that? Because I might disagree a little here.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
I mean, they're copying little snippets of different cultures, but I feel like in China, it's you can tell when someone is actually Chinese versus Korean versus Japanese.
Oh, absolutely. That part I will agree with. I think what you said just now is so accurate. They copy little snippets from everywhere. Yeah. Right? So you see the like West Coast vibe, but you see that mixed with like traditional high-end needs or whatever, like the shit you find on you know, one of the streets over here. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, is this, I mean, I don't know if you would know better, but I would assume you have more colleagues than I do. What about the guys? Like, are the guys that, not in that way, but like, are the guys that segmented? Because like what we just described was mostly girls. Yeah. And my exposure to, you know, locals are mostly
It's women. More obvious in women, for sure. I think for guys, to be honest, my company has a lot more women than men. Yes. And there are a lot more like I see like IT guys who are still IT guys. I see, but you know,
but in a way, that's its own subculture, isn't it? Like I think like there's like those IT guys and there's those gaming guys here are very popular, right? Right. That's in its own way a subculture.
It is. Yeah. I feel like I don't know, maybe the guys in my company just don't have that much. I don't know. I haven't been seeing a lot, to be honest. Right. The women for sure are.
You have a lot of beautiful women.
Yes, we have a lot of beautiful women in our company. I think, and a lot of the guys in my company have found their spouses in the girls there.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a lot of people have been dating within the company, but all the guys find good, like nice girls, and the girls are like, "How come there's no guys for me to pick?"
Yeah, I mean, you guys do a good job recruiting. I don't know what it is. It's so interesting. But seeing this segmentation over the last 5 years, this is one of the recurring themes on this podcast, is I think a lot of people focus on the technological advances. Mm-hmm. You know, mobile payment, share bikes, fill in the fucking blank, right? But there's like this cultural change that has happened a lot. You see it with that. You also see it with food. Like you go to somewhere else in China right now, and the most Western food you get is, Papa John's maybe, right? Or like one or two Shizan restaurants. But like here, not only do you get proper Western food, you get a diverse range of it, and it's only growing.
Yeah.
Like I think that's another example.
We're very spoiled in Shanghai.
So spoiled.
We're very spoiled. Like you can eat whatever you want. Yeah. Anything you want that from around the world, pretty much. I'm sure you'll be able to find in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Like in Yunnan, when you went to, places, you would find some nice Western bakeries. There'd be like pasta.
Wow. Okay.
A few brunch places, but definitely not to the extent that we see here in Shanghai.
Because like
we have. I think we've had like 5 years of Michelin guides here as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
But this is all, like I'm talking to you about this. This has all occurred since you and I have been here.
Yeah.
When we first came here, there were like small pockets of like aggressively average Western food.
Yes.
Right? Element Fresh was good Western food back then.
I think when I arrived, there was already a good amount of, like, there were decent places.
I guess I just couldn't afford those places back then.
Yeah. Right? Like, the bars were very Western.
In terms of food, though?
In terms of food, I don't know. It's definitely, the talent has gone up. I remember when I was young and I was coming here, my dad wanted to get Western food. We go to like Blue Frog.
Yeah, they're still around.
Right? Yeah, they're still around.
They're still
we
around.
We go to Blue Frog. He was like, oh, there's this Western restaurant I want to take you. And it's freaking Blue Frog.
Yeah.
Which is not bad. Blue Frog is,
There's definitely worse out there. Blue Frog is not bad. That's a good way to describe them. Yeah.
Yeah, but the bun, like, they were always really nice restaurants.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Right?
The bun had them. Yeah, like Mr. and Mrs. Like, they've been around forever.
Yeah, and the Shanghai French concession, like when I arrived, I feel like the cowboy days of Shanghai were just nearing the end.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about these cowboy days of Shanghai from people who had been here for more than 10 years. And they were like, oh, back when this was happening.
Yeah. I think those first 2 years when I first got here, it was literally like the Wild East.
Yeah.
Like it's not just like the city, but also just the mentality and the people that are attracted to. Like when I first came here, one of my good friends at the time, her name is Jitty, and we were talking about this. Shanghai was a place where if you didn't fully fit where you are from, you would come here and you would really, grow here, right? For whatever reason, not just because you were an outsider or nerdy or whatever, but just because maybe you just didn't fit in Vancouver. I most certainly didn't. And then when you came here and you basically had a collection of people from around the world, I think especially in our ABC circle, like I have ABCs who are Dutch who feel much more closer to me than people I know back home. Right? Because we share that same mindset where it's just like we need to get away from X to come to Shanghai.
Right.
And we've stayed here and we've grown here.
Right. Yeah.
And I think we've been very fortunate in that sense. Like I have friends here, you included, who I've known for like 6-7 years. It's cool.
Yeah, there aren't so many people left that now. Like recently, in the last year, last couple of years, a lot of close friends have been moving on to somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this is what the city is like. It's a place where people come for a few years and they move on, and it's always been like that. And I'm sure it's going to continue to be like that.
Yeah, I think that's changing.
You think so?
I think so. I think because one, Shanghai is much more open and tolerable to foreign workers now. Like as in companies' lifestyle, it doesn't matter if it's your real estate agent, your landlord, your boss, whoever. They are much more tolerant of it. Like it's much easier being a foreigner here now than it was when we came.
I feel like there were more foreigners though.
Really?
Yeah, I thought there were more foreigners living here when I first arrived than there are now. I feel like there was like an outflux.
But those were mostly on like short-term internship exchanges, work, rotations. I think now more foreigners come in with like an open mind. It's like, here's my CV. Let me figure it out.
It is harder to get a job as a foreigner here now.
Yeah.
It is harder. There are more barriers. You have to be a bit more talented. You can't just come in here thinking I'm going to make money off Chinese people. So
those
you have to
gone.
actually be hired from, a decent company and do decent things. Or, be good at your job rather than just be like, oh, I'm going to move to China and try and get into this pot of gold. Which, by the way, is one of my pet peeves is when people say they're going to move to China.
Really?
To get money from this pot of gold.
Who says that?
People say things about, like Chinese people will say this about Westerners sometimes.
Really?
They want to come here and make money off Chinese people, thinking that this is a place where it's easy to make money. And I've heard this is, me, I don't get mad. I'm very chill. I don't have a temper.
Yeah.
The only time that I've ever had I've gotten angry and had an altercation with anybody in my entire life pretty much is one time I was sitting at Elementary and I was with a couple of girlfriends. we were just chatting, and then these two guys were sitting behind us. One of them was very drunk, and he kept tapping my shoulder, wanting to talk to us. So we very politely told him, you know, we're having a girls' night. Would really appreciate it.
So this still happens. We just talked about that. It's like, in terms of meeting people. And
this was like 2 years ago. But you know, turned around. He was like, he kept poking us, and we said, you know, we would appreciate it if you left us alone. We're trying to have some time, you know, with our friends.
Yeah.
So then he kept doing this, which is like super annoying. But his friend came and apologized. He was like, I'm sorry about my friend. He's very drunk, which we appreciated. So we later got to having a conversation with this guy. And then things took a turn. So his friend went inside the shop and actually ended up like calling the shopkeepers shabby, like all this stuff. So they actually had the police call on them. But that's a separate point. The guy that we were talking to that came to apologize to us, he started saying things like, you know, I'm from X country. I won't name the country. It was a European country. He was like, I'm from this country.
Of course they were European. This entire time you explained
I'm from this country. And I believe this country and 2 other unnamed European countries are basically leaders of the free world. And all the ideas that had ever happened came from us. And I'm only in China to make money from Chinese people.
Wow.
Basically
he actually
just
said that?
He said this. He was
like,
he
French?
I think so. I think so. What?
Of course he was. It's okay.
Anyway, he said all these things, and he was basically like, you know, he basically was saying what he was meaning was Chinese people, he doesn't care about,
right? You
know, this country or the people here. He's here to make money. Yeah. And I was livid. Yeah. I think I like shoved him. Yeah. I hate when people, you know, come to this country and say stuff like that. You know, it's a place that has given you an opportunity and jobs and a place to live, and you know, it's very safe here.
Right? Money. Especially in his case, when he say, I came here to make money, it means that he probably made some, so you should be a little thankful.
Yeah. Right? So I think, especially like back in the day, my parents used to always say Chinese people are very 崇洋媚外. Is that how you say it? Basically, they treat Westerners like some sort of higher entity, like, you know, it's like, oh, they're Western, so you got to treat them very well.
Right.
But I'm more and more that has changed.
Yeah.
You know, the Chinese people we're becoming more proud of things that come out of China, and Westerners are having a harder time here than they used to.
Westerners are definitely having a harder time. I think that's part of the natural progression. I think what you just struck on was one of the reasons why I want to do this. Like all of this, you know, with what we're trying to do with the noodle shop, it's kind of looking back at history. Dude, China has a very, I'm not going to say the word proud, but like a very rich history of culture, of arts, of music, of fashion, you know, sure, there were issues with China, but there were issues with literally every other fucking part of the world, you know, and ever since I started studying things like the Opium War and stuff like that, and having been here for so long, it's really made me more empathetic and sympathetic. I identify as Canadian. Like, you want to put a gun to my head and ask me to be a soldier for a country, it would be Canada in a heartbeat. But I just think that people are a little too hard on China right now. I'm not just saying this because we're in China, right? But we have talked about this on the podcast, the amount of shit that has changed over the last 5 years.
Right.
Modern China, as we know it, is very fucking young. The US was killing people in Montana on horses and cowboy hats as recent as